Hapless teenagers beset by demons in the woods. A strange new drug that turns art into murder. A can't beat a deal on a new house with a horrifying past. A video game that might usher in the apocalypse. From the demented mind of Sean C. Baker, author of A Collection of Desires, Shadow Play, and Murder Virus, comes Volume 4, collecting Baker's no-sleep work along with several never-before-published short stories. This 99-cent volume also includes the opening chapter of the author's forthcoming teenage giallo novel, Black Gloves and Broken Hearts, due out later this year.
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Horror Vision Horror Podcast. My name is Timothy Nasalrod, and I hope that we can be friends.
And I'm still just Missy.
And our guest today, once again, is author extraordinaire. And I believe I've said that before. I've definitely written it, but I mean it. Ivy Tholen. Ivy, welcome back. We're here to celebrate Mother Dear.
Yes, thank you for having me again, and thank you for saying such nice things. That's not going to make you a monster later.
We love you.
Okay, I have to tell you, before we get in, really get into this, I finished reading it, I don't know, a month or whenever it was, a month or two ago. I had it for a while, and it's been hectic. Once again, your kills are marvelous.
Yes.
However, I've been dying to tell you this. What has stayed with me is the psychological torture of, I believe it's Rin's assistant Shannon. You write kills amazing, but the way that they explain the psychological torture of that poor woman, it's just absolutely. It's like you're reading it and it's funny. Then it's like you really start to be like, oh man, this is actually like really fucked up. So while you're laughing, you're like kind of stop laughing, and you're like, holy shit! Like if somebody actually did, and then it just becomes funny again. I guess maybe.
Yeah. Because it keeps going. Because it keeps going and going and going. The spoilery light version of that is that someone stalks her using granola. As in, it starts out with granola in her desk drawer at work. And then suddenly it's in her car, and it's over the period of like over a year. And by the end, it's insane. But
there's as much granola at one point, I feel like, as there is blood in Evil Dead. There's a description of granola used in a way where I'm like, how much granola would that possibly be? Like more than anybody has ever seen at one time, surely.
Yeah. Yes. Well,
and where did you get?
Have to remember is the characters have money, so they can do whatever they want. So if somebody wants to purchase a ton of granola and hire a bunch of people to fill up someone's house, they can do it.
Oh my God. I just thought that was so wonderful. Mother Dear, for the listeners, is out. You can order this right now on Amazon. 100% worth your time. If you have not read Tastes Like Candy or Tastes Like Candy 2 or Mallrats, which I still have not read, but I cannot recommend your books enough. I feel like people should start with Tastes Like Candy, go to Tastes Like Candy 2. Mother Dear is it's a good segue from there because it's characters you meet briefly in Tastes Like Candy 2. but you don't really know what they're about. And then this like fully expands, and it's everything you write is set in Belgium, Texas, a fictional town in Texas.
Yes.
And I mean,
This
talk
book
about
is so fun. It's just a really fun. I had so much fun writing it.
I
So
know
hearing
I could
people loving
tell.
it, yeah, hearing people love it makes me so happy.
Oh
So,
yeah,
so happy. I could easily write 1,000 books about these people. Easily.
it's no, it's super fun. I mean, I feel like that book saved my life 2 months ago when I was stuck in the hospital, and it got me through because I
Yes.
was so invested in it. I was able to ignore a hospital ER waiting room for 2 days.
Oh. I've never felt so happy because I gave it to you right before all that happened.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, at least she has something to do when I found out you were reading it.
And it's so, this one is, I mean, they're all dark, but this one's super dark and super, but it's dark in a sarcastic and funny way. And
Mhm.
I laugh my ass off through the whole thing. And the kills are exquisite.
I had to crowdsource one of them because I had the idea and I was like, this is too good. This has been done. Someone's done this before. And at this point, I don't think we found anybody else who has done it. So I may
Okay.
have invented something here. I'm very
Ooh.
excited. The florist, how she's found.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Well, and so that's a good opening to tell people that this book takes place. So it is a wealthy family. I mean, really, it's a mother and her daughters,
Yes.
um, very wealthy and kind of the social elite of this town. But also, the set piece. There's multiple set pieces, but the main crux, the like climactic set piece that everything is building toward, the whole book almost is a wedding for one of the daughters,
Yes.
and you utilize the kind of wedding industry, which I'm aware of to a degree, and it really like the wedding industry freaks me the fuck out.
It
So
should. It's a horrible
it,
industry.
it's it's really fucked. It's a fucked up industry.
Because it's all a
Um,
racket.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. One of my best friends is a wedding photographer. She's an award-winning wedding photographer. She's been on the cover of magazines. And I've heard all of her stories and all of that kind of stuff. And I got married and had a wedding and blah, blah, blah. It was dumb. Probably wouldn't do it again. Um, but I've been listening to her stories for years. And I also have a friend because the mom, mother dear herself, works at a fancy resort hotel. And I have a friend who works at a fancy resort hotel. So I kind of took all their little stories and things that I knew happened to them and put them into this to create this
Nice.
insanity. But both the stuff from the wedding and the stuff at the hotel are all based in reality. Like everything had something similar, not necessarily exact, but yeah.
I had a feeling there were things. I have so many highlights in this book, and some of them are just like I know that this was real. Like this is based on somebody
Yes.
telling you this story or something.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it
Yes.
is a really
I
weird
do.
industry.
It is. It is. And the people who are in it know it's weird and are kind of put off by a lot of the planning. So it just felt perfect because I had the character idea years ago. I knew I wanted to write a mother and daughter serial killer pair. I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know what the story would be. And then I was just listening to my friend one day and I was like, this would be a great book. And I came up with the idea because if you read the book and you watch the movie Father of the Bride, they match up exactly almost. I literally
Really?
did, yes, I literally did. There's changes, of course, but
Right.
I did my best to kind of make them line up one to one. And in the beginning, when Kit tells her family she's getting married and she's really upset about it, that is exactly the speech from Father of the Bride that the daughter gives her family, except she's super excited and giddy about it in the movie. So yeah, it was really when I heard my friend talking and then I watched Father of the Bride and I was like, why is Steve Martin not murdering people? At this point, I would be killing people. And that's when I knew, oh, that's where the mother and daughter can go. And I really liked it because because I know of at least 4 books that I want to write with them in it.
Oh,
After
nice.
this. Yeah, because I
Nice.
want to do a Christmas one,
Oh
and I want to
God.
do Grandmother Dear, and then book 4 would be a huge surprise. I don't want to talk
Oh,
about that.
okay.
Whatever happens. Yes. It would be a twist.
Okay.
Oh,
That's
that's
all I'm
super cool.
Yeah. Yes. And if y'all
Well,
want to
that's
know later,
awesome.
you can ask me, but I'm not saying
Okay.
right
I
because I'm
actually
very
don't want to know. I would rather just read it. That's
yeah.
awesome. I mean, all of the Christmas one, that sounds perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
A similar industry that's, I
Mhm.
mean, it goes beyond just being an industry. I feel like it's just, for a couple months of the year, it's just all consuming.
Yeah, we can't escape it right now.
No, we
Ugh.
can't. I know, like, it's just impossible to escape. And I actually like Christmas again, but I have my limits, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, um, I enjoy White Christmas and uh, Jimmy Stewart. How can I not think of the fuck? Well,
It's
It's a
a
Wonderful
Wonderful Life.
Life, but I also enjoy Krampus and Gremlins, and I mean Die Hard is. I love Die Hard. I don't really think it's a Christmas movie, but that's a different argument. But anyway,
It's a very
uh,
different argument, and it's a
very
very like
different argument.
Die Hard isn't a Christmas movie, but we're not going to talk about that.
Well, it's like Gremlins is a Christmas movie because
Yes.
the inciting
He gets
incident is a fucking Christmas present, right? So it's
right.
like it can't be argued. Die Hard takes place at Christmas. We had to. Oh, we were trying to we did Christmas yesterday. Um, we're gonna do it again Wednesday, yay! But my sister and her husband came in, so we did it, and we were trying to make my dad happy. So Kirsten, my girlfriend's like, "Oh, there's this new like action movie. It looks like kind of like Die Hard that's on Netflix called Carry On. It's a Christmas action movie. Don't do it. Don't
Okay,
I
do
good,
don't
it."
because
watch
I had been
Christmas
considering.
and
Oh, it is. It actually. I mean, I was like, did AI write this? Seriously, that's how it felt to me.
They've
okay.
It's
had a few movies this year that made me feel that way.
it's so bad. I mean, I was literally like, I looked up the writer. He's done other stuff. I don't mean any disrespect. You never know what conditions or
Right.
demands were put on somebody when they produce something, and I'm sure Netflix pays a lot. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm digressing. But I want to warn the world about this because it was a waste of an hour and a half that made me very angry. Um,
Meanwhile, I illegally procured a film that's excellent. It accidentally leaked onto the internet. It's called F, Marry, Kill. If you like rom-coms with a little bit of darkness, it's about a girl who is dating 3 different guys and can't decide which one she's just going to sleep with, which one she's going to marry, and which one is a serial killer called the Swipe Right Killer. It'll be out, I think February is when it's actually coming
Okay.
out. So good. It was Lucy Hale. So good. I will
I,
say that.
I I've read about this.
Yeah.
Oh,
I thought it was a
interesting.
slasher. We turned it on thinking it was a horror movie. Um,
Okay.
but it is a rom-com. And if you enjoy a rom-com about disaster people, like not perfect people, like idiots that are running around acting like fools, it's a fun one
Okay.
with a dark setup.
So you published Taste Like Candy 2 earlier in 2024
Yeah, in April.
in April. And so and Mother Dear came out in August?
End of September.
End of September. Okay. Was it already written when Taste Like Candy 2 came out? Were you like, how is this staggered?
Nope. It was the day that Tastes Like Candy 2 came out, I sat down and started writing this one just because I needed to move on because Taste
Mhm.
Like Candy 2 is a depressing book. It's sad. The entire first half of the book is child abuse, and then the second half is the survivor from the first one, and she's a big, huge mess. So I needed to work on something that wasn't going to make me sad anymore. And I was literally cackling like an idiot at myself while I was writing it. It came out so easy. It was probably the easiest book I've ever written.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's why I say I could write a million of these because I love them so much. Um, but yeah, it was just I got to have somebody like I didn't have to worry about the main character in the book, Katie Rose. She's 20 and she's got something wrong with her.
That's an understatement.
But I love her.
That is an understatement.
I didn't invent a diagnosis for her. She's just got something wrong with her.
We are in her head quite a bit, and it is a fucking scary place to be, man.
Yes, but it was really, really fun.
It's all rational, and you realize like she's rationalizing this. Like, oh my God. And not in a desperate way. It's just like, duh, of course I cut his fucking throat. What would you do?
I love her. She's a wonderful character. She's delightfully snarky. She's very straightforward and awkward.
Yeah. Scares the shit out of me, man.
And I love that by the end she kind of starts to find her own place.
Yes, and it's a very messed up place.
It is. I mean, and like I love Cloris because Cloris is just like
her too.
Like like her acceptance, but because she had worked for a hitman or whatever, which is by the way is such a great setup to explain why that she's okay with it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
She worked for a hitman. There's the book also features a flower shop that turns out to be a front for a hitman. And
I just love that whole thing with the sign.
Well, I love
it so much.
The flower shop and the sign are real. They used to be across the street from my house, and that was our joke. Is that they were trying to lure people in to kill them, and I kind of thought, well, why would you do that? And I thought, oh, lazy hitman. So that was another thing that I carried around. I think I knew pretty early on that the mother-daughter serial killers would belong to the flower shop, but I don't think I put it all together until much more recently. I don't know. I walk around making notes and thinking about stuff for years before I ever sit down and write it.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like years, because I don't do any kind of like, I'm not going to sit down and write a book unless I'm going to sit here and finish it. And if I'm spending more than 2.5, 3 months on a first draft, there's something is wrong, but I'm going to fix it. I'm not going to move on. So I'm not writing multiple books at once ever, but I've always got notes and I've always got ideas. And since all my stuff is tied in and it's all the same little universe, I'm always kind of thinking, okay, like I'm going to put Katie Rose in Taste Like Candy 3, I think. Because I have a big end scene and I need somebody who can take down a lot of people. And she seems like a perfect person. And since she is a hitman, all they have to do is hire her.
Okay.
So so I think we're bringing Katie Rose back for that one, but she's definitely coming back in some other stuff too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And the one that I'm currently writing now, it features Mother Dear herself. It takes place at the hotel.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
I watched a movie and it had an excellent concept, but the execution was not good. And I said to myself, I can make a better killer pool slasher. So that's what I've been working on.
Nice.
Yes. So that was where it came from, is that I just kind of had a little bit of an idea. And since it takes place at the hotel and it's teenagers, we have Ren on hand to scream at them and possibly, threaten to murder them. But she's just a side character. So
there is that, and I believe you address it at one point. I don't know if it was in this.
It was in, are you talking about the fact that there's multiple serial killers walking around?
Yes.
Yeah, that was in this one.
I feel like I never question it. Just because of the landscape you've laid and the characters that we've met, even in like Taste Like Candy 2, the beginning, when you kind of don't know where you are because you're like, I don't know who any of these people are.
Yeah.
Or what this book is going to be. So I'm just going with it. You're meeting all these people, and then there's a big to-do in the park where they're all there with their families. And then in this book, you meet all these different people that are the hotel or the wedding industry or kind of not high society, but I guess high society in that town, the upper crust. I don't really question actually that there would be a lot of serial killers in that town. It makes perfect fucking sense to me. I mean, I don't know. I mean, and you've just really laid a groundwork for a place that like, if it's fascinating. I feel like you could do
Mhm.
like a collection of stories like
Yeah.
about just the town and not
Yeah.
include
Yep.
anybody we've ever seen before, and it would probably be fucking fascinating because A, I love the way you write, and B, I just I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of DNA that you've already laid.
It's something that I've because I knew going in from the very, very beginning, I knew I wanted to do that, and I knew I wanted it all to be in one place. But kind of when I started it, I didn't like the first book I wrote was called Permanent Damage. Don't try to read it. It's not worth it. It's not bad.
It's not
It's just
bad.
not it doesn't yeah, you liked it,
I
but
liked it.
you know, it's not it doesn't represent what I'm trying to do now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very like witches and over the top supernatural and that kind of thing. Um, and that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do something that had paranormal aspects to it, but not be the main focus.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of really started nailing that down right while I was writing Tastes Like Candy. So there's still some of the DNA of the old witchy typeness in there. But I think in the future it's just going to be I'm going to blame it all on the rich people being Satanists.
That's
they're,
awesome.
That's
they're
funny.
they're performing insane satanic rituals and it just causes the people in the town to go insane and kill each other. I think it makes perfect sense.
I like
I
that. I'm
love
writing a
that.
lot about Satan worshiping right now. Coming from the 80s, I just have a nostalgic pang for, the time when everybody was worried about Satan worshipers. Makes me happy.
I don't know if you know this, but that's still going on.
People are
Oh,
still worried about Satan worshipers, really?
oh yeah. Oh yeah. I know someone who did not like the Sabrina remake because they felt it was encouraging Satan worship. And that was how many years ago? 5, 6. So yeah.
I feel like there's always going to be those people.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, I remember that, and I loved the Sabrina series for really leaning into that shit. I remember
Right.
when I started watching,
Same.
I was like, oh man, people are because remember people were like up in arms about fucking Harry Potter, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
okay,
I had the
Right.
exact same thought when I first saw it. I was like, oh God, this is gonna upset some people, but
yep,
it's a goofy comic book show. I
Right.
just don't know how anybody I don't know how you could have the like mental bandwidth to get upset about that. It's a goofy show. I just don't. It's just silly to me.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's funny and light, and I love how casual they. I mean, we were both very excited after watching the first episode, and these people are walking around just "Hail Satan!"
I I love blasphemy. I've said it on here before. I
Yeah, me
just
too.
love blasphemy, and I was so impressed at how casually blasphemous
Hmm.
that show was. It just made me
That's
giggle
my
like a
favorite thing
schoolgirl.
about it.
How many books do you think you have concepts for in this universe? Like just on like a bullet list somewhere. Like you've already said you've got 3 more at least for Mother Dear. There's a Taste of Candy 3.
I have Taste Like Candy 3 should be the last Taste Like Candy, but the killer will be coming back at some point. Um I have an idea for a not a prequel, but another like the setup of Taste Like Candy is there's a scavenger hunt for girls that are about to be seniors. I have an idea for an earlier scavenge that also went poorly.
Oh,
Set in the late 90s, set around the same time as Mallrats. Um,
Ooh,
yeah, yeah. That one's exciting. Um, and then I have an idea for Mallrats too.
sweet.
There's probably I think I have like note files on about 15 books.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a lot of it is I said something in Mother Dear and I want it to be referenced in Mallrats too. That kind of thing.
Okay.
So that I don't have to like because I want that because I'm trying my goal is to make the Easter eggs as as invisible as possible so that it doesn't pop out to people who've never read whatever book I'm referencing. I haven't always been
Okay.
successful with this, but is my goal to be like doing that, to have them be just kind of like the inciting incident for Mother Dear is the funerals of the girls in Taste Like Candy. So I
Right.
don't know
Right.
that necessarily you would know that if you hadn't read Taste Like Candy.
Well, also the seamstress or whatever they go to at one point. It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
had something like that last year when somebody brought me a Green Army jacket. I was like,
Yeah.
oh shit.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
almost missed that. Like it was, you did a good job of like, you didn't call attention to it. It's like I picked it up,
Yeah.
but I having read those books
Yeah.
and loved them,
Yeah.
I got it, but I could have missed it
Yeah.
easily.
I either want it to be completely invisible so that people don't notice them if they haven't read the other books, or I want it to be so blatant there's like a neon sign flashing around it. I don't want it to be like, could that be something? I feel like that's clunky whenever people do that.
Hmm.
Because one of my favorite author that did this was Chris Moore. He wrote Bloodsucking Fiends, and it was like a little
Hmm.
series of comedic vampire novels. And then he went off and did an offshoot series that kind of like there was like a character that went back and forth. I just love the way he did it. Like he had the star of Bloodsucking Fiends come in and into a little like antique shop that was the star of this other book. And it was really cute the way that he did it. And I was like, I'm gonna do that. And if I hadn't read Bloodsucking Fiends first, I never would have known she was anybody. So I knew that's the way that you should be doing it, is that you don't want to like, yeah. So unless it's a sequel that has a number in it, like Tastes Like Candy 2, I'm going to try to keep the references a little bit vague from now on.
Hmm.
But they're
I think that's
definitely there.
cool.
That particular character you're talking about, while I was writing that, I was like, oh, she's one of the survivors from this one. Like she is somebody, but she didn't become somebody till after I wrote her, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Anybody who's a named character could come back. The
That's
the
cool.
male lady from Taste Like Candy is the one who discovers a body in Mother Dear. Because I was like, I think I have a male person walking around out there, and I opened up Taste Like Candy and searched for it and found it. So
Oh,
yeah.
oh, no shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then the kid who boxes in Mother Dear's car, that's the kid from Taste Like Candy too, who um is in cahoots with Blythe.
Oh, no kidding.
Mhm. And if you know anything about his life or what's going on at that point in time, of course he didn't care that a woman was killing somebody in broad
Right.
daylight.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah. It's fun. It's like a big puzzle.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's nice. It's very nice. And it's nice to come up like when you write them invisibly like that as a reader, when you find it, it's very organic and it just I don't know, it's thrilling. That's the only word I could think of for it. It's like, oh, I'm a big fan of like finding samples in movies. Like
Yeah.
we're watching, we'll get to this, but your movie pick today
Yeah.
was Serial Mom, and we're watching Serial Mom, and there's a scene in it in the courtroom where Mink Stoll is like, cocksucker, pig fucker, and I was like, oh, is that the My Life with the Thrill Kill cult sample? It wasn't, because apparently John Waters really likes the term pig fucker, so it's in multiple movies. But I love that kind of thing. I love finding those things organically.
Hmm.
It's
So,
fun putting them in. It's one of my like whenever they, because I don't plan them. They just kind of
mhm.
come up every once in a while. And whenever I do that, it's like, I don't know. It's just as exciting for me whenever I can find someplace to put things.
You mentioned before we rolled Fear Street.
Yes. That's where the sort of genesis of my little idea actually began, was because when I was in elementary school, I had a huge collection of Fear Street novels, huge collection of Christopher Pike novels. And what I'm working on right now, there is in the Fear Street Cheerleaders books, because those were my absolute favorite, there's a particular kill that happens in those books. And I kind of wanted to read it and kind of refresh myself so I knew what had happened, partially because I wanted to like give an homage to it, but partially because I didn't want to do the exact same thing.
Mhm.
I've done this before. There's an homage in Mother Dear to a Fear Street kill. It involves peanut butter. That's all I'm gonna
Okay.
say.
Okay.
um, but in the one that I'm working on right now, I went back and I read it, and I can see like what I write a little bit more complex because Fear Street was a middle grade type of book. It wasn't adults couldn't read it and just have fun with it. I think that I want my writing to be for adults, even if I'm being shelved in YA.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit more mature. It's definitely more violent, but you can see in the beats that he takes. There's a scene where somebody is killed, and then in the next scene, her sister finds the body, and there's a kill in Mother Dear where we see the foreshadowing of the kill from our killer's point of view. We don't see the kill. Then we see somebody finding the body, and then we see somebody else talking about it. And the way that it was played out, it was exactly the way that it happened in the Fear Street Cheerleaders books. And it was not something I planned, but I can
Interesting.
see, like, I always put like a little twist at the end of a chapter to keep you going. And
Mhm.
R.L. Stine did that. And it's not something I did intentionally. I just kind of stumbled upon it that I had been doing this. So
Well,
yeah.
it's a DNA.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. I mean, I don't think I've picked up that particular book in 20 years probably, but I still remembered huge chunks of it, not just what happened, but even the actual words on the page were like grilled into my brain.
Wow.
I read that book 30 or 40 times whenever I was in elementary
Wow.
school. Hmm.
Okay. And so it imprinted on you,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
learned, and you learned from it.
Oh, absolutely. Because I was obsessed with horror. My mother would not let me watch horror movies, but she would let me read. And Fear Street were like little tiny slasher novels, and that's all. Because it like hit me at such a young age. It's absolutely
Hmm.
bizarre to me that I'm doing it right now, and I don't know. It's just wild seeing it all play out. Does that make sense?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, going back, like I have influences I don't even realize that I have because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew Wes Craven was a huge influence because I like my killers to talk. And I know that that's coming from Wes Craven, but it was very weird for me to see sort of the sentence structure and all that kind of thing and thinking like I was 9 and this is like burrowed into my head forever. It's really wild.
Yeah, the DNA thing is interesting. Like, I think we might have talked about this one of the other times you were on, but I think because of your books and thinking about this stuff, like recently watching Nightmare on Elm Street, I realized that whole, like, there's kind of a suburban, I don't know if suburban gothic is exactly the way to say it, but like the trellis, the rose bushes, the white
Hmm.
front door, the little kids playing jump rope. And I was like, wait a minute, is all of that like kind of influenced from Flowers? What is it? What are the
Flowers
V.C.
in the
Andrews book?
Attic, B.C.
Yeah.
Andrews.
And I've never read those, but I feel like somehow, and I might be wrong, but I feel like that is an influence on Nightmare on Elm Street to a degree.
Well, now I have to go watch Flowers in the Attic.
I haven't read those books since high school. Um, and I'm trying to think about the movie. I maybe some of the imagery.
I
I mean,
think
I
just
don't
the
think
imagery, not necessarily plots.
right, yeah, not plots, but maybe some of the imagery. But I mean, that book is set in Flowers in the Attic is set in a big freaking mansion. Like it's not a normal house.
Maybe it's just like the cover art or something that's making me think
I
that,
think it's
or
the cover art because especially since those books, the covers, they definitely feature like white trellises and houses with red doors.
so that's what it is. Okay, 100% that's
And
what it is.
Nightmare on Elm Street, like I think that is probably where my fixation on houses with red doors came from. Like it's just a thing.
That's a new piece of information for me. That's very interesting. I thought you were going to say fixation with houses, like fun houses, like James Wan always has really good houses, specifically red doors.
No, for some reason it's red doors. I always notice them, and like I've never lived in a house with a red door, but I'm still drawn to it for some reason.
I think it's
And it's
black.
probably Nightmare on Elm Street, and I never thought of it until I just called it out.
I think the door is black now. It was black the last time I saw it. The actual Elm Street house. They painted it
Okay.
black.
Oh,
Yeah. I
oh, it
think
is a
that
red door.
Yeah.
Or what?
Yeah.
I was thinking it was
It's
white,
blue
but
in
no,
the
it's a red door.
original, red in all the sequels, and then they kept it red in real life, and then they sold it recently in the past few years, and I think when they sold it, they painted it black to make it less you're buying the Nightmare on Elm Street house.
Oh, fuck that. I mean, if you're buying the Nightmare on Elm Street house, why, like, you're buying it because it's that, right? You'd
Maybe not. Maybe not. I mean,
you'd have to
I
be paying way more for it because it's the Elm Street house.
It was owned by Bo Burnham's ex-girlfriend,
oh really?
and he filmed. I'm glad that I get to tell you this. He had his Netflix special that he did during COVID. He filmed it in the guest house behind the Nightmare on Elm Street house
Oh wow.
because she owned the house and he was living there. Yeah. And I think she's the one that painted it black whenever she was moving it or selling it. He also wrote Hustlers.
It just makes me think of the Laura Palmer house from Twin Peaks. Like
Mhm.
the people that bought that and changed hands several times, but eventually when they did Twin Peaks: The Return, like the woman that actually owned the house is in a scene in Twin Peaks: The Return simply because she owns the Laura Palmer house, right? And it's like,
That's awesome.
but I'm pretty sure I had read that when they bought the house, they were like, I don't know, I don't know what you're talking about. It's as fans of things, we think everybody knows what we know, and not everybody. But
That's true.
but also you're right. You would think that it would, like, a real estate agent would be like, I can get boku bucks for this shit. If people will pay to
Right.
like sit on a bus and drive past it, somebody will pay.
Also, wouldn't you be like, I would think they would want to disclose that to people because I don't want
Right.
to live in the Nightmare on Elm Street house. How many lunatics like me walk by there every single day? I've been by it like 5 times.
Really?
We don't stop. We're
No.
not assholes. But whenever we were in Sunset around that area, we would stop, like drive past and go see it. Yeah. I've also seen Alice's house from part 4 in
Oh,
person.
that's awesome. I
Yeah.
didn't realize these were like actual real houses.
Yeah. Alice's house is in Burbank, and Genesee is near Sunset, near the old Cinerama Dome. For anyone who
I
knows LA, yeah. But it's like you just turn onto the street and it's like right there. It's really crazy.
cool.
So what else? Tell us something else about Mother Dear.
Oh my goodness.
If you want, talk about why you picked, because Serial
That is
Mom
a
obviously
perfect.
was your pick to talk about today,
Yes.
and there's a
Yes.
lot of
Yes.
Right.
parallels.
Yeah.
So if you
Yes.
want to go into
Yes.
that or anything.
Well, Serial Mom was the other. It was Serial Mom meets Father of the Bride. I got really into John Waters in the 90s. So his 90s stuff is my personal favorite, but I watched everything of his in like the late 90s. I just became obsessed with him. I don't know why. But Serial Mom is it's probably my favorite movie of his, but I also like Pecker and Cecil B. Demented. I just really like John Waters. I love him as a person too.
Yeah.
He's a character. I've read all of his books that he's written. He writes nonfiction, and he's just hilarious. Um, he's in Seed of Chucky. He's fantastic. He's just trashy man. But Serial Mom, for anybody that doesn't know, is about a happy suburban mom who murders people for no reason.
Well,
And
wearing white shoes after Labor Day is a fucking
exactly.
problem.
Exactly. Exactly. Or jeans to a wedding. Someone
Exactly.
wore jeans to my wedding and I put it in a book.
Nice. I wonder if that person will. Oh my God, that's amazing.
No, because he was married to a family member and they are no longer married. I don't even know he would know he went to that wedding if
Okay.
you like mentioned it to him. But yeah, somebody did that and I'm still salty about it many years later. But yeah, so she does, so in Serial Mom, Beverly does things like murder people because they're wearing white shoes after Labor Day, and it's fantastic. And it is a comedy, and it's John Waters, so it's out there. But like she's got a weird obsession with like secret obsession with horror movies, and there's a lot of like commentary. What year was this? This
94.
1994.
There's
I
a
looked
lot
it
of
up.
commentary of horror films that we would see in Scream like right after this. And Matthew
Yeah.
Lillard
Yeah.
too. It's all connected.
Kathleen Turner is so fucking delightful in this movie. It is just unbelievable. Oh,
It may have been the first thing I ever really saw her in. I'm thinking. She wasn't in a lot of.
I know her from Romancing the Stone in the 80s because I was obsessed with those movies when I was a kid. That's like 84, the first one.
That's
So 10 years before this.
That's way before I would have.
Um,
But
John Waters.
She
Go
didn't do
ahead.
a lot of kid movies, but this was the
No. She was
this
like
is the first one that appealed.
I feel, yeah, she was definitely like, I feel like she's kind of a femme fatale or dramatic actress. Um, John Waters, it's, you say you watch everything. So I went through this thing like, I don't know, 15 years ago where I watched this, I watched a bunch of his movies, and it was like when Netflix was still through the mail, and I got to the only one of his older movies that I've seen. I got to Pink Flamingos, and it stopped me cold because that is the most depraved, disturbing movie I have ever seen. And the scene where Divine eats dog shit is the least disturbing thing in the movie. And I think everybody here that's seen it would agree with me. That is the least disturbing thing in that movie. Oh, man. That is a rough one.
Drag queens are rightfully obsessed with John Waters.
Yes.
And I'm a huge fan of RuPaul's Drag Race. They did a John Waters musical episode where they sang songs, and that was one of the songs. There was the song all about that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was real gross, but it was very funny.
This Serial Mom is so, it's like, I think had I seen this when it came out, I would not have understood why people were acting like that. It's kind of a farce or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Like we watched this tonight. We had just watched this a couple months ago too. This is currently, it was on Netflix for quite a while. It's not on Netflix anymore. It's on Criterion. They have a bunch of his movies. We followed this with Crybaby, which I hadn't seen in 15 years probably. Another one where if you're not in on the joke of why everybody is acting in these broad stroke kind of generic, goofy, you know, it's, you just won't get it. But if you're there for it, oh my God, they're just absolutely wonderful. And Serial Mom especially, like.
Well, that's exactly what happened to me, because I saw this movie when it came out on video, and that's the only time I've seen it previously. I've seen several John Waters films. I had a friend who was obsessed with him, and I remember thinking this one was probably the best one I'd seen. But at the time I didn't like it. But when I was, 19, 20, I didn't want any humor in my horror. Now I do. I totally did not get what they were going for, and I thought it was stupid at the time. So, but it's been so long, it was pretty much a new, it was almost a first viewing for me. I remember nothing except that Kathleen Turner was in it, and she's a June Cleaver mom who murders people. That's all I remembered. I was very excited that we got a young Matthew Lillard, who's the hardcore horror fiend and was my favorite part of the movie. But it was a lot. I had a lot of fun with it, and I wasn't sure if I would, but I know that both of you really like it, and I know my taste has changed since I've seen it, so I thought I'd be more receptive to it. And I had no problem taking the ride. It was fun.
I knew
Oh
you'd
yeah,
dig
if
it.
you're not into horror comedy, you're not gonna like this. If you're not feeling that, you're not gonna like this because it's more comedy than it is horror.
And that was probably the problem then.
It's not even really a horror movie. I mean, it's a comedy that like uses horror to produce
Yeah.
comedy, you know, to perpetuate its jokes. But oh, it's like the way it ramps up with Kathleen Turner is just you know, hysterical, and like the kind of the third act with the courtroom. I mean, also like L7, that
Yes.
when we get to that scene, it's such a 90s, like, oh, have them go to a concert, we'll have a band, you know, that's big with the kids. It's just such an insane fucking scene. There's so much going on. There's so many people. Oh, it's wonderful.
He's parodying a specific type of film that I don't think exists anymore, too.
No,
No. The
it
closest
doesn't.
thing I can think of, because it's parodying in the 90s, there were a lot of like true crime movie of the weeks. And I
Okay.
don't think we get those anymore, but I think kind of like episodes of SVU do it now, like rip from the headlines type things. But I think that's the
Okay.
closest thing. But when you compare it to stuff like there were three Amy Fisher movies at one point. If you watch those type of movies, that's what he's trying to parody. And that's why it has the courtroom drama and all of that kind of thing. And Suzanne Summers, you know,
God,
you fantastic.
that
Oh
shit
my
was funny.
God. Suzanne Summers is fucking hysterical. Just, oh my God.
She doesn't do much but smile.
She really doesn't. And like, in the court, everything in the courtroom, like her cell phone rings in the courtroom, and like the judge is just still like just enchanted by the fact that she's there.
That Suzanne
Uh,
Summers is gracing his courtroom.
yeah, and she really doesn't do anything in the courtroom. See, and then when she does, like, oh, we're gonna get a picture together. I love that scene where she's like, Suzanne, that is my bad side. Oh my God.
Yeah, it had a goofy humor to it, and I love that you carried some of that over into Mother Dear because the kills are the kills are super fun. I love the scene when they go for the cake tasting to the weird vegan place.
Yes.
That entire scene from the minute they walked in, I just laughed through the whole freaking thing.
That was just me channeling. I get weird Instagram recommendations, and that was me channeling a lot of the things that I have seen and how I felt
Oh,
about them.
and how you felt about vegan cake. It sounded fucking
How I
disgusting.
feel about how I feel about people making bone broth hot chocolate.
Like I thought you made that shit up. I
No,
didn't
none
realize
of
it was
that
a
was
real
made
thing.
up. Not even
Oh
giving birth in
God.
the ocean.
I don't want yeah, that all was just
None
it
of that
was
is made up.
weird and it was weird and creepy and funny and fucked up and I loved it.
Things I've seen. Yeah.
I have a feeling Ritzy is going to, at some point in one of the later books, really, I don't know,
Yeah.
that character. I'm like, I kind of knew we weren't going to get much more in this book, but I'm like, I'm so fucking curious. Like,
Oh
Same.
yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I have a friend who is a middle child and has always felt neglected. And I was writing that character and realized I wasn't going to have her speak ever because I thought it was funny.
mhm.
And everybody kind of hates her.
I liked her.
I loved
No,
her
her
and
family.
I like the
The
fact she
whole
gets
family
hammered
is
and
just
completely
like,
misses the drive to the fucking wedding, right?
she doesn't even go. She just like it's not even worth it. Ritzy would be a smart person if you're interested in the little like Easter eggy type stuff. Ritzy would be a very smart person to pay attention to. Like she is important, but she will not speak.
yeah, I was fascinated with her whenever she was like on screen.
Yeah. She didn't have any kind of story, but as I was writing it, I was like, no, she deserves better than this. But it's gonna be a ways out there before we get to that. But there's absolutely something going on with Ritzy, the middle sister.
And I love the friendship that we get with Katie Rose and Cloris.
Yeah.
I remember being really into that. That I actually added more after you told me that you liked that. I played
Yeah,
it
I
at the
think it's really sweet, and it's the because Katie Rose is like, yeah, she's psychotic and she kills people, but she's also, I mean, she's been like verbally abused by her mother her whole life. She doesn't
yeah,
know how to be her own person. And
yeah,
this is the first time she met somebody who accepted her for who she was
Hmm.
yeah,
and made a real friend on her own. And they're very honest with each other. There's no like
right.
Horace knows who she is
Yeah, yeah,
and helps her and befriends her anyways.
yeah. I think she's a little
That's
scared of her, but I do think it's a genuine friendship, and I think she really does genuinely like her
right.
because she's very amusing. If you know she's not going to kill you, that's a fun person to be
Yeah, it's a good person to be
around.
friends with, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I have a lot of toddlers in my life, and I based Katie Rose on a toddler. She is a toddler, except she's like 6 feet tall. She's huge, but she's a toddler. I
Yeah,
like
I
having
think that
female killers. So all my killers, I have like tall girls in everything, just so it's not like every tall girl is a killer. So I've got tall girls that aren't killers too. But to make some of these things more believable, it's more believable that Katie Rose is killing people if she's this giant versus her mother, who's this teeny tiny little person.
Right.
So there's lots of tall girls all over Beldam, and that's the reason why I need to make it mildly more believable.
okay. But yeah, I really liked their relationship and I think it adds a lot to the story. You know, it gives it more depth than just the slasher stuff.
I
Granted,
like
I love
doing
the slasher stuff too.
I, I like doing stuff outside the slasher stuff. Um, Sometimes that's more, I mean, it's definitely more important than some of the slash. I read a quote earlier this week from someone on Blue Sky. I don't remember who it was, but it was a writer. He was saying the way that you can tell a good horror novel is you pick it up and you're reading it and you're into the story before the horror even starts. Like you would
Yeah.
Hmm.
read the story if it was not horror. And I believe that as well. So I think that the stuff around the horror and the slasheriness is more important than the actual stuff, even though if I know I'm going to be writing a kill, I'm like, I get to kill a teenager today.
Hmm.
That's fun, but I have more fun. I had more fun with Katie Rose being insane than I did with her killing people. Like the banter and the things that she was thinking and the way
Hmm.
that she thinks about things was more entertaining to me than her actually murdering people, which might be why the florist kill, we don't see that. And I think that might be why. And I also put in there that when Mother Deer kills someone, it's always in third person. It's not Katie Rose describing the actual murder.
Right.
That's in there for a reason as well. She's a very unreliable narrator. So I was very careful with she's not going to see her mother as a terrible monster who's beating somebody's head in with a car door. So I don't want to have her describing that. It was an intentional choice. I don't know.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I really did. I liked the way the chapters, you would get those chapters that were in italics that broke away from Katie Rose's perspective.
Yeah.
I
I do that
thought
a
that
lot.
added a lot.
I do that a lot because I knew I wanted to write from first person perspectives. And when I was trying to think of, because I intentionally do not read modern slashers, like the big ones. Like I haven't read any of Stephen Graham Jones's stuff except for the first My Heart is a Chainsaw. Stay away from it. I stay away from all that stuff. So I hadn't really read anything since Fear Street. So I didn't really know how to structure kills because I knew I didn't want my main character watching every single one and describing them. That
Hmm.
didn't make a whole lot of sense. So I realized you can switch back and forth. And whenever I have a kill where, the main character wouldn't be watching, wouldn't be able to describe it, I'll put it in third person. I'll throw it in italics just to make it kind of clear we're seeing something from a different point of view. And I've done it in every single book. And I think it's the best way to sort of weave in. It helps with the feel of I'm reading a slasher movie, I think, if that makes sense.
It
Yeah.
does.
Okay.
That's a good way to say it.
Yeah, because that's what I want it to feel like. I want you to feel like you are watching a 90s slasher movie in your head while you're reading my book. And I think that that's why that was the conclusion I came to, is that it's like cutting away in a movie, so it's kind of like going back and forth. People tell me things about my writing that I don't do intentionally, so I have to go back and figure out, because I constantly get, it's very fast to read. You just zip through it, and I don't know what it is that makes that the case. So I'm always kind of trying to figure out, why is this happening and why am I doing this and what's making it happen. And I think that the first person, switching from first to third, gives it that movie-ish, like, cutaway feel. I don't know.
It does. I didn't realize it until you called it out, but I see them as movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since the beginning. They've all felt like movies, because you do the same thing in Mallrats, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've
Yeah,
done
I
it in
thought so.
every single book.
I
Okay.
can't remember it in any other book. It's so
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. For instance, the kill in the House of Mirrors in Tastes Like Candy is done in third person. First person. Third person. Jesus. It's very late right now. It's
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
yeah.
that's really interesting.
I'm not like
I
falling apart.
noticed it
Yeah,
right
yeah.
away in Mother Dear.
I think it's because Katie Rose is a much stronger narrator than any of the other narrators.
Oh, okay. That's a very good
Yes.
point.
Because usually your final girl is the narrator, and usually they're a little bland. Um, I have one that won't be. She's in this book. She's in Mother Dear. And
Oh.
she was in Taste Like Candy too. Her name is Kenzie. She was a total accident. She is the one that has a curling iron and defends somebody from being murdered with a curling iron. Gonna bring her in. She's gonna be a chipper little chipmunk. It's gonna be great. But up until now, most of the final girls have been a little bit bland. Violet is a bit of a disaster now, so that's kind of fun. But Jenny in Mallrats is your stereotypical final girl, fights back but isn't like crazy or whatever. So Katie Rose though is a character. So I
Yeah.
think it breaks back and forth much harder and it's more noticeable there. But no, definitely there are at least 3 kills I think that are third person in Taste Like Candy. Yeah, I think so.
It's
Interesting.
also more front and center in Mother Dear, because we know who the killers are right off the bat. It's not
Yeah,
a
Good,
yeah.
good point. Very good
Yeah.
point. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a different kind of read.
It's not a
right.
whodunit. It's not at all.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. The next one isn't the one I'm working on now is not a whodunit either. It's got a little twist to
Okay.
it, but it's not a whodunit.
When do you plan on, do you have any idea release wise or?
I have no idea.
Fair enough.
I have no idea. Um, I'd like to put it out next year. I don't know if that's gonna happen.
Okay.
But it's a supernatural one too, so it's been really fun. I was going for The Ring meets Slumber Party Massacre 2.
Oh,
Oh,
interesting.
sweet.
Yeah. That was my goal with what I'm working on. Yes. I don't know.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, but it's a supernatural one, so we got a ghost. And there have been ghosts in all of the books. Not Taste Like Candy. There's no ghosts in Taste Like Candy. All the ghosts, anytime that you see anybody with black empty eyes, that's a real ghost. So there are
Okay.
ghosts in Mallrats, there's a ghost in Mother Dear, and there's is there a ghost? Yes, there's a ghost in Taste Like Candy too. But somebody asked me about that recently, and I wanted to put that out there, is that there've always been supernatural things happening. So it's not weird to do a supernatural slasher, and supernatural slashers are my absolute favorite because I'm obsessed with it. And I do have a kill that's inspired by Tina's death in A Nightmare on Elm Street, but in a completely different way. That makes no sense, but
No, I mean, it makes sense insofar as I can't wait to fucking read it.
Exactly.
Even if it doesn't come out, I will send it to you.
In the meantime, though, I gotta do, and I want to say for the readers, Mallrats, your book Mallrats is spelled Maul.
It is a nod to Kevin Smith, but I wanted something kind of clever and stupid, so I loved
Well,
it.
I mean, when we talk about it, we all know, like I
Yeah.
know what I'm saying, but it did dawn on me when it came up a little while ago. I was like, oh, I got to remember to throw that in there because I think I did that last time where I didn't mention it, and like, yeah, I love that title for that reason. Like, it's fantastic.
I had a different title picked out and somebody used it before me, and so I came up with that, and I've like it way more than the
That's
original
cool.
title. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to read that one, Sean. I think that's actually my favorite one.
Okay.
It's my favorite.
It's very Friday the 13th-ish, and I love it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Oh, nice.
it's set in 1999, and I do 1999 very well. I don't brag about myself very much, but I paint a very good picture of the late 90s.
Hmm.
The late '90s are it's a weird time. I know, like my girlfriend really wanted to see Y2K. I don't know if it's still out, but I'm like, I just have like I was having a great time in 1999, but there's so many things about the late '90s, early 2000s that just irk the fuck out of me. Like culturally, for somebody that was in their 20s at that time, it was
We're
like,
living through it again.
all right, well, I mean, well, I don't think so. Just because I mean, we won't get into it, but like earlier this year, I realized, and now in the last like 2 months, I'm 100% like I'm putting my money on this. We live in a dystopian future. End of fucking story.
Oh yeah. I don't think anybody's disputing that.
I think there's a ton of people disputing it. There's tons of people that are like, "This is the best time." Like, it is. It is not. It is very unnerving,
Yeah.
and but the late '90s is it was there were so many things about the late '90s, and it also might be like perspective because I'm older, but it was like I just felt like it was a cultural fucking waste. Even like I don't remember. I guess this was after the late '90s, but like we've talked about this on air before. I think Missy, like a couple years ago, I bought Masters of Horror the first season, so that's like 2004 probably.
Yeah.
I just I'm like what why do I hate this Toby Hooper episode so much? Like it's Toby Hooper, but I fucking hate it. I don't know.
By 99, there was so much good stuff in the early and mid 90s. By 99, it was all watered down, it was all played out, everything was moving into bubblegum, everything was moving into that hard saw type of like extreme music video horror. So
Yeah,
that particular like in 1999, it was the end of something really good, and in hindsight we now know going into some really bad stuff.
yeah,
And I don't mean necessarily, like with the world. I'm just talking pop culture. Pop culture fully in the OOs. And that kind of got kicked off in those, I think 99 was definitely because the Matrix came out and then everything was copying the Matrix after that. It was the beginning of something new and it wasn't something good.
yeah. Like the Matrix was great when I saw it. At first, I was blown away, and then like 6 years later, like, oh, can we stop doing the fucking Matrix? Every movie
Yes.
that comes out,
Yes.
right? And then remember in 2006, I remember like 300 came out, and I was like, this is awesome. And like 2 years later, I was like, just
Yeah.
please, please,
Yes.
everybody forget this movie exists and stop imitating it.
Yeah. And
Well,
if you were a
that
horror fan, there is some awesome OO's horror, but
Yeah,
I like slasher type kills that are fast. I don't need to see someone tortured for, you know, ever before they're, killed, whatever. Torture porn did not do it for me because it's just too
no.
much. I'm not a huge gore hound. I don't mind it, but I'm not there for it either.
Hmm.
So, like, and I say that thinking that In a Violent Nature was one of the better movies of the year this year. So, whatever. But I don't know. It just wasn't a great time coming ahead in the OOs. It was an icky time.
Yeah,
So many low-rise jeans. It was just inappropriate.
I feel like yeah. I mean, there were. Are you a fan of May?
Um,
The Lucky McKee movie?
yes. There's another one of his movies that I like better. I like All Cheerleaders Die
I
better.
knew that was going to be my next question, actually.
I don't think if you've seen that movie and you know anything about me, it is not surprising that I love that
No,
movie.
not at all. Yeah,
Yeah.
that
May is a little
definitely.
quiet for me, but I do think it's a very good movie.
There's 2000s. I mean, there were a lot of. I had friends that buoyed me as far as like, well, that's really when became a complete fanatic
Mhm.
for the horror genre, which is amazing considering. But it was like it wasn't going to the movie. In fact, it's only been within the last year. Like our friend John made me sit down and watch 13 Ghosts because he was like, "How the fuck haven't you seen this?" I'm like, "When
Yeah,
did it come out, John?" I didn't see shit in the theater when at that time because it
Oh
sucked.
my God, that's such a
that
good
was a such a
movie.
fun movie too.
It's not good, but it's fun. Yeah, that's what, yeah.
Yeah,
It's worth watching, and I feel
Yes.
like a lot of stuff at that time. If it was horror and in the theater, it's not. I mean, there were exceptions, but yeah, I had not seen that.
I went through a William Castle phase earlier this year and watched a bunch of those remakes. I watched the originals and the remakes right around the end of September. I don't know. I got into a real weird mood around then. But I did. And the William Castle remakes are not bad
Yeah,
at
all of
all.
them are good. Uh,
wait, what other movies were remade?
13 Ghosts, House on Haunted Hill, House of Wax.
I haven't seen
Okay,
that.
I love House of Wax.
I think
I
Death
don't.
Ship too, which I also haven't seen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I
another one.
I tried recently to watch the remake of House of Haunted Hill, like a couple months ago, and I still don't like that one.
I think that's my least favorite of all of them.
But House of Wax is the one I like best. 13 Ghosts is fun too, but I have
Yeah.
some issues with it.
The 13 Ghosts is probably, yeah, I'm reverse. I like 13 Ghosts the best and then House of
Okay.
Wax. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I just like there's something a little bit in the tone of House of Wax that I'm not a huge fan of. It's a little meaner than
It's
13
a little
Ghosts,
meaner.
even though there's some mean ghosts in 13 Ghosts, but it's a little mean.
Hmm.
I just I like the funness more. But
Okay.
they're both good films. I would watch either one of
Yeah,
them.
I like both too, but I think I like House of Wax better because it is a little meaner.
I do enjoy that they promoted it with the phrase "See Paris Die."
That was why I didn't see that movie.
Yeah.
That like I was just like sorry, you put her in the movie. And I could be wrong, of course. So
You're not.
so many people have told me to watch that movie over the last like 10 years.
It's solid, and it's got a very young Jared Padalecki with the world's
Yeah.
worst haircut.
Yeah.
I I think it's funny. Like Missy, I don't think you were on the show yet. What it was a couple years ago, and Ray had. It was like I watched the House on Haunted Hill. Well, so I thought I was watching that, right? So Ray and Anthony were like, "Oh, you got to watch these William Castle remakes." So that was the first one I picked, and I accidentally rented instead The Haunting with Liam Neeson and Catherine Zeta-Jones. And I'm
Oh.
like texting them, I'm like, fuck you guys. Never again. Anything you suggest, go fuck yourself. I'm like, you're fucking with me right now. And at some point, I mentioned like Catherine Zeta-Jones or something. They're like, wait a minute.
What
What
are
are
you
you watching?
watching?
They're like, you got the wrong movie, dickhead. That shit was fucking awful. I don't even remember it, but I was just like, oh my God. Then I watched House on Haunted Hill with Anthony, and I enjoyed it. Like it wasn't, it didn't blow me away, but
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I get it. And then John made me see 13 Ghosts, and I really liked it.
I was not doing the show with you guys yet
Okay.
when that happened. You probably
Awesome.
weren't doing it via Zoom yet. It was probably when you were still in Cali.
Yeah, it was definitely still in Cali, and you're right, it was probably pre-COVID, so we would do it gathered at my house, and the recordings would suck. Um, it's always just a pleasure to hang out. I mean, obviously with Missy,
Yeah.
one of my best friends in the world, and talk horror, which is the impetus for this show, but also Ivy. Like, I just love to hang out, and I feel like we could just record and talk about
Yeah.
eras and genres and
Yeah.
movies forever. And
Yeah.
your books.
Mhm.
Yeah. I like talking about me. I really don't.
Oh, and you are always welcome to come talk to us.
I love talking to
Yes.
y'all. It's great. It's nice to be able to speak to someone who speaks the same language as me. With the exception of like one person that's very close to me, I don't have any friends that are into horror at all. All my friends are just that's just her little thing.
That seems so weird to me because like
Right?
because I'm
Right?
surrounded by horror people and
Yeah.
film buffs and stuff. I always have been.
Yeah. Nobody cares about my feelings about the third act of Nightmare on Elm Street 3 in my real life. Nobody
I
cares.
care. I care deeply.
Yeah, now I have people that care, but before that it was sad. So I'm always very happy to be here.
There is that thing, like I wrote something recently and as I wrote this, I thought it for the first time, but it's like the conversation about horror that is pretty much taking place 24 hours a day in my fucking head. Like like, so when you say the third act of Nightmare on Elm Street, and that's the thing, like I've definitely become a little bit more self-conscious about from like there I've had lucid moments. There was a lucid moment in a comic shop in California, I don't know how many years ago, 5 6 years ago, where I realized I was talking to somebody that didn't get to talk about this shit with anybody else, and I was literally like kind of pinned against a wall, and like I became lucid and was like, I'm not getting out of here unless I might have to like hurt this person to get out of this conversation. Like I don't know that I can extract myself. So I watch other people that are fans, and it's a wonderful thing to be a fan, and I love fans, but fan is
Yeah.
from fanatic.
Yeah.
And I do
Right.
feel like people should be a little bit careful about how they do, they talk to other people, because there are people just get really like, okay, man, but I love that. I love that you say that, the third act of Nightmare on Elm Street, because yeah, like we all have things where it's like
Yeah.
just have a conversation with yourself all the time. Like I watch shit constantly, and I'm constantly like making connections and thinking about things, and I want to talk to people about it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm watching stuff and I'm like, this is how I would fix this. This is, oh my God, I'm jealous I didn't write that. Oh my God. Like those are the
Hmm.
kind of thoughts that I'm constantly having. And it's hard whenever people won't even watch this. Like I've wanted to talk about The Substance so much to so many people who won't ever watch it, who I know would enjoy it, but because it's horror, will not touch it. So it sucks, but
Dude.
yeah.
Well, sometimes you just have to, uh, have them watch it blind. I just got Peter to watch Dinner in America with me yesterday, which is not a horror movie. It's just a great movie.
Yeah, it
And
is a
he
good.
didn't know anything about it. He just watched it. Had he known the premise, he wouldn't have sat for it. But because he didn't know and he went in blind and just watched it to hang out with me, he fell in love with it because he watched it completely open-minded. Granted, The Substance is a really different thing, and if you're not into horror, it's pretty hardcore body horror, which can super weird people out. But
I saw it before. I have a friend who is into horror now, and I saw it before he did. And he was trying to convince his wife, and he was like, "But she doesn't usually like nudity or anything like that." And I went, "Oh, maybe
oh
this is a
god,
movie for
Yeah.
her."
yeah, maybe not that one. If he wants to take
Yeah.
his wife to see a horror movie, maybe Strange Darling would be a better choice than The
Yeah.
Substance. If she's, going to see a really fucked up body horror movie when she's not into horror, she'll probably never watch movies with this poor man
But
again.
hey, that's the thing. He did get her to go. He told her what I said. She did
Mm,
go, and she loved it. So
Really?
really?
it's a
Oh
good
hell yeah!
movie.
It is.
It is a good movie.
It's easily my number one of the year, and it's
Easily.
also easily the best theatrical experience I've had, and I don't even know how long.
Oh, definitely.
Probably
Definitely.
since Mandy at the Egyptian in the premiere. But it's almost so good of a theatrical experience. I'm afraid to watch it again at home because
It's good. It's still good.
I mean
I have
it was
watched it twice
oh
at home. Yeah.
I saw it twice in the theater, and first time I went with Kirsten, and we both loved it. And then second time I went by myself, and I was so fucking high too. And it actually worked against the viewing a little bit because I was like so high that I was like, wait, like see, I think I was watching it and scenes were disappearing me behind me as I watched it, like like a disappearing fucking rope bridge. It was weird. I became untethered, but it was still a really cool experience. It just
I was in a similar state of mind when I saw it in theaters, and the beginning when all the transition happens the first time and it goes crazy like student film
Uh-huh.
insane, that almost gave me a panic attack. But I kept it
Okay.
together and everything was fine, and it was an amazing way to watch the movie.
yeah,
It's very loud and not just audio.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole
Yeah.
thing is loud. Everything about it is
yeah.
loud.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I had a great time with that one too. I mean, it's not my top of the year, but it makes my top three. I'm still
Strange
holding
Darling.
strong for Strange Darling. I
Strange
think
Darling.
it's
Yeah, I was gonna say it's strange.
fucking
So
beautiful.
what's the other in your top three?
Um, this this is based more on experience, and I have werewolves sitting at number two, but I am the werewolf girl, and they gave me practical werewolves, and it was just a movie made for me. So it ranks in my top two, but a, the substance is a better film,
Hmm.
but I
There is nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
My number
Werewolf's
two is
fucking awesome.
Smile 2.
but werewolves was I am their target audience, and I fucking love it.
Yeah.
So I mean,
So we need to see Werewolves, is what you're saying.
Werewolves, it was a good
oh
time.
yeah, it's a good
It's in my
time.
top 10 for sure, just because it was such a good time. Like
Interesting.
when
It's
you
The Purge
realize
too
there was
with
like a moment, I was like, why is everybody so fucking macho? And then I was like, oh, it's a Stallone movie from the fucking 80s. I'm in. I got it.
Oh,
yeah, it's super over the top and ridiculous.
I like my creature features that way. I don't like I don't like, with the exception of I think Ginger Snaps, I don't like straight-faced werewolf movies. I don't like straight-faced vampire movies. I like, Shaun of the Dead and Return of the Living Dead are my two favorite zombie movies. I
You'll
need
like this.
something else there. I don't just want to sit. I didn't know it was like that. That I'm interested now. I want to see it now.
Oh, within the first 5 minutes, like I saw Lou Diamond Phillips, and they talk about using moon screen, and I'm like, okay, this is my kind of movie. It's fun. I mean, The Substance is definitely a better film, but Werewolves is exactly my jam, and I had a blast with it.
Yeah, I'm not one to talk. Smile 2 is my number two. So, I mean,
Smile 2 makes my top 10, but
there's been a year of fantastic, artsy, wonderful horror, and Smile just did it for me. So
Did you like it more than the first Smile?
much I didn't like the first one.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right.
Yeah. It Trauma is the villain or the real villain in both movies, but it was much
mhm.
more obvious whenever you're dealing with a psychiatrist. And like that's the whole like big red flashing trauma, trauma, trauma. I don't like stuff like that. Even though we're dealing with a pop star undergoing her trauma, we're also watching her be a pop star, and that is way more fun. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And I just liked the setting a lot more. I enjoyed Trap too, not as a thriller, as a comedy, but it's another one where they put a pop star in the middle of something.
Mhm.
It's a fun little setup
It's a
type thing.
fun watch.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, Mother Dear is available right now on Amazon. So if you're listening to this, here's my suggestion. Go to Amazon, put Tastes Like Candy 2, and Mother Dear in your cart. Or if you just
And
want to,
Mallrats.
well, and Mallrats, but I can't. So I know I'm going to love it, but I haven't read it, so I don't want to like. I feel like if I go that far, then the listener might be like, well, this guy hasn't even read this book and he's recommending it. Fuck this guy. So I want to keep it like with my experience, but. I feel like that also to read all three of those books will probably take you about a week, and it'll be a fucking great week.
Yeah, well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you. I mean, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for writing these books, and I can't wait to read the next one. Ivy, I'm
can't
I'm
wait
a big fan.
Thank you so much.
I mean, well said, Sean. I pretty much feel the same way. I love all of the books. They're slasher movies that you get to read, so
Yeah,
check them out.
yeah.
And I'm so glad that there's other, because I write what I want to read, and I'm so glad there's other people that want to read it too.
Fuck yeah.
And I
Yes, we do.
and I love when actual horror fans are writing
Yeah.
horror because
Not just somebody
you know,
that's like, I could do that, and then it's
right.
ridiculous. Right. Yes. No.
There's a
I'm
big
not
difference
that.
when you're reading or watching something and you just know that the person who created it loves this shit as much as you do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love
definitely.
whenever that happens. This is one of my, because it feels authentic and it's like, oh yeah, you know what I like because you like it too.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, come back. And so as we said before, and we had you on for what the fuck was the name of that movie?
Oh my
I don't
God.
know, a couple
It
movies.
was oh my gosh, Sleepaway Camp 2.
No. That was when we talked about
Oh,
Tastes Like Candy too. But we had you
Maxine.
on an episode.
Maxine,
Maxine.
she did Maxine with us.
Maxine.
No, but then there was another one. I forgot you were on Maxine. It was
Oh,
a Netflix movie.
oh.
Oh, it's What's Inside. She found
Yes.
it.
Yeah, which
Yes.
actually
That's
that
why
was
we
a
watched it.
fuck. That
Yeah.
was a great movie. I forgot to even
Yeah, it was.
consider that for a ranking. Um,
It's been an amazing year for horror.
anything like that, like you think you see it's coming, and you're like, hey, this
Yeah.
is coming out. I want it to, be on, or I just saw this, or whatever. Just hit us up anytime.
It's not like Missy and I don't talk.
Yeah.
Right?
So I mean, definitely, you're always welcome.
Well, thank you because I always have fun. It's always really, really great to talk to y'all and for someone to be nice to me about the books. No, yeah. It's very awkward for me to talk about anything about myself. So I'm very grateful for y'all because you make it very easy, if that makes any sense. So
Yeah, well, we love to have you
I
on here
love
to talk
talking to
about
you
yourself.
guys about it. Yeah, it's fun. So thank y'all very much.
Cool. All right. As the Horror Vision, go buy Ivy's books. I'm Sean.
I'm Missy.
That's Ivy, and we'll be back
Yes.
soon to talk about more. We'll talk. Maybe we will come back and talk about the third act of Nightmare on Elm Street 3.